to what we are all saying. But in the process, your blood circulation is going down. Have you realized that when you sit in one place for a long time, you tend to feel a little tired? That is because our metabolism depends on good blood flow. And if you want to keep the blood flow active, what do we do? Did you all feel a tingling sensation in your palms? When you clap with such vigor to bring the roof down, you find that there is a certain tingling sensation in your palms, right? That is actually the sign of the blood flow increasing. So what is the lesson in this for us? Whenever you like something that any of us say, or if any of us do not say, feel free to bring your hands together and clap. Brilliant. This is a brilliant team. I am loving you all already. This is superb. Today, we had some wonderful sessions where people with a lot of experience in the Indian agricultural ecosystem came and shared with you what's happening in Indian agriculture. What are some of the opportunities available to us in horticulture and in agriculture in general. And we also had an experience sharing just now on how people can bring in innovation into agriculture. But like they say, for somebody to get a real perspective, it's important to also look at what's going on around us. Not just in our own sector, because there are several lessons that we can learn from what is happening in other sectors. Why just other sectors in our country? We can even look at what's happening overseas. Because there is no limit to what we can learn if we indeed observe what some of these winners have really succeeded in doing. Right? So that's what we're going to spend time on, but we are going to do it not on a lecture mode. My dear friends, this is not going to be a lecture mode. Very soon, we're going to get into a quizzing mode. I'm going to ask you to identify some startups. I will just give you some clues. Let's see who's able to identify the startups that we are going to get to. But before that, let's set a little bit of context. Shall we? A brief introduction about my background. You guys told me about you, but I want to share with you that I was born in God's own country. What is that? Kerala, absolutely. I was born in Trivandrum, but most of my education was in Tamil Nadu. I completed my graduation and post-graduation in Tamil Nadu and then went on to work for these companies. Unilever, CMC, Computer Maintenance Corporation, it used to be called. Later it became CMC and was taken over by TCS. Now TCS owns CMC. And then Microsoft and Maersk. Have you seen on the roads the containers with Maersk written on it? Yeah. Many of these containers, it is the largest company dealing with containers and cargo. It merged with Sealand, so it's called Maersk Sealand, and it is twice as large as the second largest competitor. Of course, I did not have any role to play in that. They became big by themselves. Yeah, you can clap. So post that, I I got some memberships in international associations. Like IAF is not Indian Air Force. It is International Association of Facilitators based out of Toronto in Canada. I'm a DTM, a Toastmaster. How many of you are aware of Toastmasters? There is one hand. There are two hands. That's it. In a total strength of about 100 people, just 2 people are aware of Toastmasters. Not acceptable. Particularly when 23 of you are going to go abroad and stand in front of audience and like me, stand and present to an audience of international people. How do you equip yourself? Toastmasters is a wonderful way. I am not a person employed by Toastmasters. I pay subscription to become a member. But I must tell you that today, one of the things you're going to do is please note down in your book, Toastmasters International. It's a communication and leadership development organization that really creates wonderful communicators, wonderful leaders. And I have been a member for 12 years now. But I started fairly late. At your age, if I had started Toastmasters, I would be more well known than Elon Musk or Bill Gates. So that's the potential in front of you. Develop your communication skills, develop your ability to present what you have as excellent ideas within yourself, and you will all go places, I promise you. Today, over the next 5 days, we're going to see certain elements of how you can indeed become excellent presenters of what you may already know. But I am jumping the gun. Let's go step by step. So that is Toastmasters for you. And I'm also an NLP consultant. NLP is not natural language processing. It is neuro-linguistic programming. Understanding how the brain functions. How do we learn things? How do we unlearn things? Why do we do what we do? How do we understand motivations? Yeah, so that is neuro-linguistic programming. I'm also a life member of Hyderabad Management Association. I work with platform companies that provide a basic platform to provide consulting and training services. Knowledgescape is a company that has got simulation-based training, right? And UAccelerate is a company that provides a platform for coaching services. Have you got a coach? Not that bag that fashionable ladies carry. Some of you are, coach, I know, coach bag. No, not that coach. You know Sachin's coach? Who was Sachin's coach? Achrekar sir! Come on! Not that you don't know, but you are hesitating. You know what a coach is? A coach is somebody who brings out the best in you. So here, again, I would suggest that each one of you, this is the right stage where you should look for somebody who can mentor you, who can coach you, who can bring out the best in you. Because look at anybody in the world who has achieved some level of greatness, they would all have their coaches. Pick somebody from among your circle. Make sure that you are getting proper guidance step by step so that your full potential can be realized. How many of you are going to think about how to get a coach very soon? Your hands up. Yeah, there. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. So reach out. There are people with such great experience in agri sector, horticulture, and I'm sure even within your campuses, there will be people whom you can approach and say, can you provide me some mentoring? Can you provide me some coaching? Believe me, they'll be very happy. When youngsters like you reach out and say, I respect your experience, I respect what you know, can you please coach me? They'll be more than thrilled to provide you that support. Yeah, so please await that. And I'm a published author of a book called Storyize Your Message, which is basically how do you use elements from storytelling in corporate messaging. Corporate messaging is very dehumanized. You understand dehumanized? Not at all palatable to human beings. So storyized message helps us to bring back the element of human touch in corporate messaging and communications. And I run a small consulting firm called Anmol Sparsh. Anmol Sparsh, for those of you who know Hindi or Sanskrit, means Anmol is priceless and Sparsh is touch. So Anmol Sparsh is priceless touch, and that's what we aim to give to anybody who we come in contact. Now there are two reasons why I showed you this slide. One, of course, within 2 minutes to let you know what all I have been through right from my education up to now. But the more important reason is, like I said, all of you entrepreneurs will one day have to stand on a stage like this and introduce yourself, maybe investors, maybe to partners, maybe to alliances, maybe to suppliers, who knows? But you will all have opportunities to stand here on stage and talk about yourself, give an introduction about yourself. And at that stage, using bullet items or a boring paragraph, no. Feel free to use a template, like, of course, use your photograph, okay? And your own data. Okay? Don't talk about what all I have done. But there's a template that's available to you. Similarly, try and project what you are in a graphical way. That's what engages me. Alright, can we have a round of applause for that? Wonderful. Moving forward, we are here to talk about what an entrepreneur's journey is about, right? We heard an actual entrepreneur come and talk about his experiences, but we also want to understand what are the stages that an entrepreneur goes through. Initially, a startup entrepreneur needs to get inspired about something, right? You have to be inspired about something that you are going to take up as your startup idea, right? Unless you bring the passion, you will not be able to go through with the 3 years of sustenance that he talked about. Remember, he said you need to have ability to sustain for 3 years. There will be challenges. It's not going to be an easy journey. So when you have that passion, when you have the inspiration, that will help you to pass through that initial stages and indeed become successful. The next is, just inspiration is not enough. You need to discover how the idea that you have is going to help somebody, enough number of people to solve their problems so that they'll be willing to pay you for it. Otherwise, what fun is it having an inspiration? You can have any number of inspirations, but they don't end up as businesses until you discover how it's going to help a number of people. In your case, it's very easy. The stakeholder community that you are talking about is the agri ecosystem. And very consciously, I am not using the word only farmers, because farmers is one part of the ecosystem. Today morning, when Venkat Reddy sir talked about so many of the issues in terms of logistics, cold chain, so many of those things, the beneficiaries of your inspired idea may well be a non-farmer, it may be a trader. You may be able to provide a solution to people who are actually doing trading or export or packaging or whatever, right? So, end of the day, you need to be aware of the ecosystem in which you are operating, and your inspiration has got to get converted as something that is of use to a number of people who are willing to pay for it. So that's your discover process. In the next 3-4 days, we will go in depth on how do we validate your business idea, how do we make sure that we are not going after something that does not have any potential. We will discuss all those. But right now, It's more like a teaser trailer of the movie that is going to come up over the next 4 days. Alright. The third is you are a founder. So a founder's mindset is very different from a normal person's mindset. Ultimately, what distinguishes a startup entrepreneur is the ability to think like a startup entrepreneur. And we're going to look at examples over the next couple of days on how startup entrepreneurs think differently. We're going to take practical examples from successful startups to see how startup entrepreneurs think differently from the regular people. Alright. Then, once you have the inspiration, once you have discovered that this is indeed a good idea, you launch your startup. Yeah? So when you launch your startup, you also want to make sure that you are not spending all your father's, mother's money without really having some reasonable amount of chance of success. And do you know what is the rate of success of startups? Globally, what percentage do you think succeed? Anyone? Shout out. Huh? Huh? Less than 10. 1 out of 10. Saying the same thing. Yeah. Yeah? Any other numbers? Any other? You're absolutely right. Can we give a big round of applause to both of these people? Big round of applause. Absolutely. Globally, the statistic says only about 10% of the startups succeed. But still, people are rushing. I will show you over some time this presentation itself on how everybody is flocking to start a startup. Why is it that when the chance of success is only 10%, why is it inspiring so many people to do startups? We will see that. But more importantly, understand that there are methods by which you can get into a startup and still not be financially ruined. There is a very clear methodology that is available called the lean startup methodology, which permits you to fail in your startups 3-4 times. Still your father will not complain or your mother will not complain. Because it will do nothing to your financial well-being or financial standards. You won't become a pauper just because your startup fails. And remember, startup ideas fail. When we say 90% fail, it's the startup ideas that fail, not the startup entrepreneurs. Clap. I'm asking you to clap so that the blood flow is there and you remember some of these things. That a startup entrepreneur will only fail when he or she gives up. Startup idea may fail. That's why this 90% of startups fail, essentially because the business idea does not have the potential to go the full length. That's okay. Perfectly okay. Many of the great enterprises that we know about was not the first idea of the entrepreneur. They started with something, soon discovered that this is not going to take them places. So they pivoted. What is pivot? Change direction. And either change slightly or change 180 degrees and started off a completely new business idea. So startup entrepreneurs will only fail when they give up. Startup ideas will fail. Every day startup ideas will fail. Okay? Remember this part. Then once you know that your startup is indeed getting traction, you are indeed getting good customers, paying customers, time now to scale up. From your startup, you want to scale up your organization, right? That's the time you invest in building team, you invest in getting technology, you invest in putting processes in place, maybe get an ERP system and a CRM system, what have you. Because end of the day, successful organizations need a lot of infrastructure, right? So we're going to cover that later. What all do people need when they are into the startup ecosystem, and at what stage is it appropriate to invest in various things. We will see that as we go. Thank you. And when you are successful in scaling up, you become the leader that people look up to, that people talk about, and people want to emulate. Yeah? How many of us want to get to that level? Leadership. Ah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So it's our attempt to get all of you there. The 23 of you who will be lucky to travel overseas is only one part. But it's my guarantee to you that those of you who sincerely taking the inputs that you are going to get over the next 5 days and whatever follows, you are well on your path to get to that level of leadership. Do not give up. Persistence is the key in terms of ensuring that you realize your dreams. You are at the stage where you can afford to dream and fail a couple of times. Nothing is going to happen. But do not hesitate. Do not think, oh my God, what will happen if I fail? What will the 4 people say? Let the 4 people say whatever they have to say. Those 4 people, I mean, they are no way going to support you when you need it, right? So why are you concerned? All you have to listen to is the mentors and the experts who have your interest in mind and who provide you the guidance. And then have the boldness. The fact that all of you here, after taking the written test or whatever you had, the shortlisting process, to me is an indication that all of you want to seriously consider getting into a startup. Am I right? So to that extent, when your VC sir in the morning said, let's all not get into employment. There are so many opportunities around where we can become the employer and add great value to the society by providing great solutions to the agri community, which deserves a lot of support. Don't you agree? Agri, which is feeding us, is suffering so much. And each one of those sufferings are a possible opportunity for us. As people who have been blessed with good education, blessed with institute like UHS, which supports this so actively, we are lucky, aren't we? Can we clap once for that? So that is the entrepreneurial journey that we are going to cover over the next 5 days. Who is a founder? Let's look at what makes a difference for this person called a founder. Founders are individuals who create. It doesn't exist, but they create. First they dream about it and then they bring it to reality. That's the process of creation. Correct? So first of all, they are people who create. But do they stop with that? If they stop with that, will anything become real? No. They need to execute. 10 frogs were sitting on the side of a lake. Pristine, nice lake. Okay, very good water. And 10 frogs were sitting there. 7 of them decided to jump into the lake. How many? 7 decided to jump into the lake. How many are left on the shore? Ah, brilliant. Look at 10. Can we give a big round of applause? What's your name? Your name? Sneha. Sneha said 10. And that is absolutely a brilliant answer. Why? Because they only thought that they will jump. They haven't jumped. So until such time as all of you potential startup entrepreneurs think, oh, I'm going to get into the startup, that's all it is. You only thought about it. But when you execute, that's when you can make your dream a reality. So you have to have the ability to create, that means envision, ensure that it gets executed, and invest in ideas. Not your own money necessarily. But no startup succeeds without appropriate investment at appropriate stages. So we will see how to use OPM. Don't tell your lecturers that here was a facilitator who came and said use OPM. OPM is only other people's money. That's all. Okay? I'll tell you how exactly you can use other people's money to succeed. That's the idea in terms of making sure that you are able to present your ideas so powerfully that people, high net worth individuals who are sitting with crores of money in their bank balance, says, hey, Sneha's idea is really brilliant. Why don't we invest in that? Yeah? So getting them to that investment also calls for you to be powerful communicators. Remember Toastmasters? Check it out today, okay? Okay, so those are the founders, individuals who create, execute and invest in ideas to turn them into startups. Now the key here is create from nothing. It doesn't exist earlier. Then suddenly a wonderful solution exists. Because the person thought about it first. So you're all probably in the stage. I don't know if any of you have already launched your startups. I know that you're all fourth year students. So most likely most of you are either toying with a few ideas that you think could be potential startup ideas, or you think you have already kind of shortlisted one and you want to pursue it. Right? Good. Because over the next 5 days, we're also going to see how do we take it to the next stage. How do we logically get it to the next step? Yeah, we will see that. Then, second is getting things done. Get tangible results. 3 years down the line, if we were to be sitting in a similar kind of situation, and all of you are still toying with the possible ideas, or have just shortlisted an idea, it means that you've not done anything between today and 3 years down the line. And we don't want that situation. We want people to actually jump in and take the action. Not like that frog which was sitting in the edge of the lake and deciding to jump. Right? So jump in. And execution calls for time, money and effort. Effort from the startup founders front. Time from the startup founders front. But money, not necessarily your money. You can use OPM, absolutely. Yeah? And what is a startup? Let's say my father was a very successful lawyer. Okay? He was a very successful lawyer. And he also sent me to law school. So I finished law and I start a law practice. Would that be a startup? Yeah, your answer is right that it's not. But what is the difference between somebody who's having a startup and somebody who's starting a doctor's practice or a lawyer's practice or a small advertising firm? Yeah, what is the difference? Yeah, yeah, that's a very valid point. Can you give a big round of applause? It's nothing new. You've not created something new. Secondly, its potential for scale up is also fairly limited, right? It's not like one of those disruptive ideas because of which suddenly it's going to take off through the roof. How much can I grow my legal practice? Maybe 20% every year if I'm lucky. But that's not what startup investors are looking for. They are looking for revolutionary ideas that can change something that exists currently. So when you look at possible startup ideas, one of the things I'm going to look at is it going to disrupt a current practice in a massive way? And thereby there is potential for phenomenal scale up. Yeah? You've all heard of the word unicorn. Have you? Yeah? Unicorns, what are unicorns? $1 billion revenue startups. Yeah? And they happen at such a fast pace. It doesn't take 35 years. Like what IBM took or Microsoft took. No, it doesn't take that long. It hardly takes about 12 to 24 months from the time it is started to becoming a unicorn. That's what makes it what we call blitz scaling, fast kind of scaling. That potential has got to be there in the business idea for it to qualify as a startup. So when you choose a startup, your mentor or a coach will tell you whether this is another practice, अच्छा ठीक है और एक दुकान खोल लो, right? वो कोने में दुकान नहीं है, एक दुकान और खोल लो, startup provision shop. But that's not a startup, right? When you want a startup, it's got to be something revolutionary, something that really changes the way things are happening. Yeah? Okay. So, let's look at startup business. Why is the font different from what we had? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's showing me completely different font from what I had. Okay. Startup is a business that wants to disrupt industries and change the world. How did Ola and Uber disrupt the taxi industry? Sorry? Yeah, but the how was not properly. Through mobile app, absolutely. Can we give a big round of applause? Ola did not own any cars, right? All they owned was one set of people who wanted a ride from one place to another, and another set of people who had cars which was not used very much, spare capacity. So Ola was just an intermediary. He said, okay, you need a ride. Okay, you have spare capacity with your car. Bring the two together, I make money. Right? So they disrupted the industry. Oyo does not own hotel rooms. They go and talk to hotels and say, okay, you are having 20% capacity utilization, I can make it 80 for you. Yeah, all you have to do is follow certain guidelines that I say. Use clean sheets every day, change the towels every day, make sure that there's a soap for visitors, and then I will tell all the travelers that if you book through Oyo, then you are assured of a clean room with clean bed sheets, clean towels, soap in your room. They didn't own any of the hotel rooms. So these kind of startups are what we call intermediaries, whose primary asset is information about people who need it and the people who have it. They are the in-betweens. It's a very disruptive thing. So many startups that we are going to look at have essentially looked at disrupting total industries by coming up with some innovation that is really earth-shaking. Right? So your startup, whatever it is that you are thinking of, should pass this test of is it something which is really revolutionary, something that disrupts business, something that changes the way business has been done so far. If there is no change, then you are starting another small company, that's it. Yeah? Okay. They have the potential for rapid growth because we are disrupting, right? And grand multiplier returns. You talk to a startup investor, and if the investor says, what kind of returns can you offer? And it will be 15%. They'll say, I have some important business, we'll try and connect later. They're not interested. Nobody is interested. They want 10x returns, 20x returns. What is 10x? 10 times the money that I put in, I need. Only then I am interested. Startup entrepreneurs are giving you funding without collateral. They are not asking you to write their house in their name. They are giving you money out of trust. They just listen to your business idea and say, hey, this has got potential, let me invest in it. They are not asking for any collateral, like a bank loan or something, right? That's what makes this entire thing venture capital. It's called venture capital because they're venturing. They take a risk. And when they invest in multiple such startup ideas, one of them may succeed and they will recover the money from all the 10. The other time if they fail, that's okay. That is why, in spite of that high failure rate, there is a tremendous interest in getting into startups and also from the people who are funding startups. So when we understand the way the whole ecosystem works, then we understand why is there so much of an interest in people getting into startups and people willing to fund the startups, though it has got a 90% failure rate. Okay? They do this by developing some unique product or service, bringing it to market and scaling it at a very fast pace. So over the next few days, we are also going to talk about go-to-market strategies. We're going to talk about what serves as branding, how exactly we are going to do positioning, how exactly we are going to look at pricing. All those aspects also we will be discussing as a part of the various sessions. So stay tuned to the various things that are coming in. By the end of 5 days, you will have all the necessary information that you will need and also tips on what you need to discover further. Links, like we said, about things that you should develop on further. So how many of you are using a notebook which is for this occasion or for your startup? Do you have a separate notebook for your startup? Or are you making your notes in some other notebook in which you also have the birthday of your favorite Bollywood star and which movies you need to catch, Netflix movies, this. Is it a kind of a notepad in which you are noting down? If you are, I would strongly suggest that today you shift whatever is the information related to your startup into one real thick notebook and use that notebook for all of your startup related activities. Even if you happen to have some kind of meeting when you're not having the notebook, come home and write it in the notebook. Let that become your book of record on how your entire startup journey is progressing. Yeah? So this is just a tip to keep in mind. Okay, let's proceed. I introduced a term called ecosystem, right? So what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem will generally have multiple elements that play some role out here. For example, if you look at support startup ecosystem, the laser pointer is not working. Yeah, startup ecosystem, there may be some big companies that invest. For example, we heard that when Big Basket became a certain size entity, Tatas were interested. They came and invested. When ID Foods came to a certain level, there were people willing to invest in this particular. So there are big companies that constantly are watching what's happening in the startup world. And when it reaches a certain point where you know, yeah, it's going to succeed, you will find a lot of people who come and woo you, saying, we'll pay you $400 million. Will you give a startup to us? Interesting idea, no? You may not have spent even $1 million, but suddenly you get an offer from some large company to buy you off for $400 million. Wow, man, what more can you want? Yeah, so big companies are a part of the ecosystem, and then you have universities. Why is UHS conducting this? To encourage people to become entrepreneurs. So all of you are beneficiaries of this attempt by UHS. You didn't pay any special fee for this, right? Even when you joined your respective campuses, there was no fee for the UHS startup related program. No, you're getting it as students of this university. You have been selected because of your capability, because you cleared that initial whatever written test that you had, and you qualified, and you're sitting here, and tomorrow you do extremely well here. You may be one of the 23 that goes to I don't know which country. Please take me with you, okay? When you go, yeah. So you can have universities. Several universities are investing in making the startup ecosystem success. You have funding organizations. They are primarily venture capital funds. Like you may have heard of Chrysalis Capital or several of those names, who are basically into just listening to pitches and deciding which one they want to support or fund. Yeah. Then you have service providers. You as a startup, as soon as you start, you are not going to employ a legal advisor, accountant, marketing specialist. You are not going to appoint all of those people, right? You don't have money, number one, and you want to see whether it's actually going to succeed. Therefore, there may be certain shared service providers who say, oh, you want legal advisor? He is available to you whenever you need. You just pay per hour. That's all. He's not your employee. He's an expert that's available. You want financial accounting done? I have an accountant who will come and do your accounting for you. It's not going to be an employee. You only pay for the number of hours you use. So this is a shared services ecosystem. And most incubators provide for the shared services for all the peripheral services. Even marketing is included in peripheral services. Okay? And we'll see why as we go along. So that you don't have to invest your time, money and energy in building all of those till you know that you have a successful organization in your hand. And only in the scale-up stage, you will consider hiring your own legal person, hiring your own HR executive, hiring your own finance person and so on and so forth. Right? Until then, what matters is getting the inputs, and shared services is a good model for that. You have research organizations. Yeah? So you reach out to research organizations. For example, if you are coming up with some innovations, yeah, take the device, that solar powered device, multifunction device. Now there are research institutions in the country that you can go and ask what materials will be appropriate. How do I, machine lathe this? How do I get into the level of precision? Can I include some optical capabilities in this? What kind of scanners are available? You don't need to have all the answers. You can reach out to research organizations that can also help you in crafting out the solution. Yeah. So all of these are examples of people who help you succeed. And India has got a very, very active ecosystem. When you start your journey of being a startup entrepreneur, you are not alone. You are not alone because there are a number of organizations that want to make startup entrepreneurs succeed. Starting from the PM scheme, Skill India, Startup India, Stand Up India, and all those kind of things, to at your local level, at your city level, at your state level. You are part of Karnataka state, right? So I'm sure Karnataka state has got a lot of support for startup entrepreneurs. It's not just financial, it's also in technical information support, hand-holding you at times when you need it, and so on and so forth. So the ecosystem is extremely strong and powerful. I am based out of Hyderabad. So in Telangana, I know that they have very good focus on helping startups. We have something called T-Hub, Technology Hub. Recently, they opened the largest such incubation center in the whole world. Phase 2. Huge. So the message is, whether it's central government, state government, local, there is a lot of support available for all of you startup entrepreneurs. Learn what are those. Sir is going to do a session immediately following mine, where he's going to tell you where are the places that you can reach out for these kind of help. Whether it is for money, or whether for technology, or whether it's for any other kind of support, he's going to share a lot of valuable information with you. And he has very kindly also told you that he's going to share copies of PowerPoint with you, right? At the end. It's a valuable service that he is providing to you. So many years of experience. So many years of experience distilled and provided to you at no additional cost. Yeah? So really, hats off to you, sir, for this. Okay, now we come to the interesting point where I'm going to show you some clues and you have to guess which startup we are talking about. Alright? Just shout out the name of the startup. You don't have to wait for me to point out or anything. Okay? It was founded in 1996 by a Stanford student. It started as free web email. It is now transformed into Outlook and was acquired by Microsoft in 1988 for $400 million. The founder's name, the Stanford student's name was Sabir Bhatia. What is the name of the startup?
Probably this generation may not know.
No. They'll find out. What came before Outlook? Before MS Outlook, which is the email system. No.
Googled. That's why she
No.
studied.
Yeah. Brilliant! Can you give a big round of applause for that? Absolutely. The father of the email systems that we have today. Hotmail, Sabir Bhatia. Yeah. Okay, next one. Yes, the startup. Founded in 2013, motivated by Airbnb. It started with selling SIM cards. The focus was on budget-minded travelers, and today it is valued at over $16 billion. Absolutely. Give yourself a big round of applause. The next one. Founded in 2010. Started as a prepaid mobile and direct-to-home recharge. Focus on full services e-commerce, valued at over $14 billion. Yeah? You're close. Next one. Founded in 2007, started as an online bookshop. Today, it is online retail giant, valued at over $24 billion. Shout it out. Absolutely. Flipkart. Amazon is valued at not 24 billion. Their revenues are many times that number, right? But your guess was in that space. Generally, right, the e-commerce side.
This was taken over by Amazon.
Yeah, taken over by Amazon. So to that extent, you're right. Okay, guess this one. Founded in 2014, started in Bangalore with This one everybody knows, huh? I think you all means reasons for success of Swiggy. Okay. Next one. Yes, this startup. Founded in 2010. Abandoned by a taxi driver near Bandipur. He was traveling, suddenly taxi driver said, get out. And focus on sharing economy, valued at over 6.2 billion. Ola, absolutely right. Good round of applause. Next one. Founded in 1999. Oh my God, you guys are absolutely brilliant. Book my show. Next one. Founded in 2000, started as a travel agent. Make my trip. Absolutely brilliant. Next one. Founded in 2008. You guys are out of the body. Okay, next one. Founded in 2011, started as an e-learning company focused on food and staples delivery. What is it? We talked about it in the morning, right? Big basket. Okay, next. Founded in 1999, started for beaming payments between personal digital assistants, PDA. Super, PayPal. Let me tell you a brief story about PayPal. No. Yeah? Is there something interesting? Share, so let's all enjoy it together. Okay? PayPal, Elon Musk was one of the investors in PayPal. The money that he made when they sold PayPal was the money that he used for building his new startups. What are some of his new startups? Tesla, SpaceX. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you see from where to where he has gone within a span of our known memory. He has not taken 25 years, he has not taken 50 years. Yeah, at best he has taken maybe 10 to 12 years. That is the scaling up that we are talking about. Yeah, good. Yes, this startup, founded in 2007 to start for social fundraising. Today it focuses on discounted group buying. What is discounted group buying? Let's say you want to buy a refrigerator. I want to buy a refrigerator. Yuvraj wants to buy a refrigerator. Not OLX. Okay, let me complete. So if 50 of us want to buy a refrigerator, do you think you can get good discount from the manufacturer? Absolutely, right? As compared to my trying to go and buy one refrigerator, if I say I have 50 orders, what discount can you give? He is going to give you a much better discount. Many villages in India, villagers buy motorcycles based on this. They bunch up their orders, then negotiate, rather than negotiating for single motorbikes. Yeah? So what is the name of this startup? It's called Groupon. Yeah? Groupon. Like group coupon kind of thing. Alright, so I guess we are at the one more. Founded in 2009, started for browsing and shopping retail products. Focus was on photo sharing. Today it's valued at over 17.63. Instagram, no, this is earlier than Instagram. It's called yeah. Okay. I think okay. So what we saw so far were not agri examples. I'm going to share a few agri examples in the later part. Okay, it's coming. But the important thing to note is that startups as a concept we need to understand. It is very different from just starting a company that just does traditional kind of business. It has to be something that really has a potential to scale up at a rapid pace. And it should disrupt the current processes in the industry. Only then you can attract investor funding. You go and say, I'm going to start a dukan, nobody is going to give you funding. Yeah? So therefore, it has got to have that kind of potential. That's what people who evaluate startup projects look for. So keep that aspect in mind. Secondly, take inspiration from the people who started with a certain intent in mind, but ended up becoming successful by pivoting the idea, not just staying on with the idea. So somewhere later, I think second day or third day, we're going to go a little deeper into this concept of pivoting. When do I know that I should pivot? Should I pivot every day? Or should I pivot once in a year? And how much should I pivot? Should I just make minor changes? Or should I make major changes? Or should I completely drop this idea and get on to how do I know? Right? We'll see. As we go along, we will see answers to some of these questions. But remember that a startup entrepreneur only fails when he or she gives up. Startup ideas may fail. Entrepreneur failing or not failing is only in your hands. Yeah? And let me show you the kind of progress that we had. The unicorns, the number of unicorns that we have had over the, remember 2019 onwards, we also had some major event in the world. What was that? COVID, absolutely, COVID. But in spite of that, look at the growth that was there for the various startups. Because people looked at possibilities that COVID was bringing to the table. Now suddenly people can't go to the offices to work. So what happened? Zoom became a big name, right? Prior to that, Zoom was not much heard of. Who uses Zoom? Nobody. Those who are using Skype. But suddenly the pandemic hit and Zoom became an absolute must. They capitalized on the idea and they really grew so large. Yeah, like that there are several examples of people who are alert to what is happening in the environment. And when they see that a certain set of people are having some issues, some problems, some challenges, they see that as the opportunity. And try to arrive at a solution that will solve these people's challenges. Yeah. So across sectors, all of these startups, if you see, they're across sectors. There are artificial intelligence startups, there are e-commerce startups, edtech, fintech, food and beverage, healthcare, and so on and so forth. There are several kinds of startups. Yeah. But primarily we are interested in the Indian startups. So these are the Indian unicorns as of 2020. Unicorn is a valuation of over $1 billion. Not sales or revenue, but valuation of over $1 billion. And all of these are examples of Indian unicorns. 42 more unicorns were added in 1 year, 2021. So is the rate of startup increasing or decreasing? Increasing environment. So much. So these are the new startups that came up in 2021. How is the funding in Indian agri-tech sector? Closer to our interest, what is the Indian agri-tech sector looking at like? We had the investment of about 3.4 million in agri-tech startups in 2016. It went up to 244.6 million in 2019. Then there was a dip, probably mostly because of COVID. But even now, if you look at, I'm going to show you a video in a moment, which will demonstrate how it is bouncing back. What kind of investments are now happening in India. Yeah. Some of the startups in Indian agri-tech, which have been extremely successful, the top 3 startups, you have AgroWave, which is a big startup, Bharat Agri, and Big Hat. Big Hat, have you heard of Big Hat? Yeah. So, if you want inspiration, and if you want to make sure that your idea has not already been taken, it may be a good idea to please note down, check Agri-Tech Startups of India. When you go through the set of Indian Agri-Tech startups, you may get an inspiration suddenly. Hey, he has done this, but how about doing this? It may be a spin-off, or it may be a derived idea. But that's what we do, no? All the Indian directors, when they see a movie, they get inspired. They make their movie. If you think it's a copy, that's your problem. Yeah. But really, this is one good way for you to keep track of what's happening in the Indian agri-tech sector, the kind of ideas that have really become successful. That will help you in terms of your finalizing your idea before you make investments in this. Yeah. Okay. Now it's we are ready to watch a brief video. Can I request you, Vanilla, to please just watch this video. Before the video starts off, let me tell you, is there anybody here who doesn't understand Hindi? Good, good. So everybody understands Hindi. This is more in Hindi. Most of it will be in Hindi. But very simple Hindi, such good Hindi that even Yuvraj can understand. Sorry, Yuvraj. Okay. So it's like the basics. But focused on agri-tech and startups. Watch this video.
इंडिया में जो एग्रीटेक सेक्टर है वो एक फास्ट ग्रोइंग सेक्टर है, जहाँ पे इस सेक्टर में पूरा पोटेंशियल है कि वो इंडियन एग्रीकल्चर को बहुत अच्छे से बेनिफिट पहुंचा सकता है, जिसके वजह से इवेंचुअली जो फार्मर्स की इनकम है वो भी यहाँ पे बढ़ेगी। मैं आपको बता दूं कि इंडिया में ऐसे 450 एग्रीटेक स्टार्टअप्स हैं जो कि काम कर रहे हैं। इसके साथ ही नास्कॉम का ये कहना है कि ये जो एग्रीटेक इंडस्ट्री है वो हर साल 25% से भी ग्रो कर रही है। पिछले कुछ सालों में इंडिया में एग्रीटेक स्टार्टअप्स की यहाँ पे मानो एक लहर सी चल पड़ी है, जहाँ पे मैं आपको बता दूं कि 2013 तक इंडिया में जो एग्रीटेक सेक्टर है उसमें सिर्फ 43 ऐसे स्टार्टअप्स थे जो कि काम कर रहे थे। वही आंकड़ा बढ़कर 2020 तक 1000 से ज़्यादा स्टार्टअप्स का हो चुका है। ये जो नंबर्स है उसमें एक सिग्निफिकेंट राइज देखने को मिला है, जिसके पीछे कई सारे रीजंस हैं। पहला तो ये कि रूरल एरिया में जो इंटरनेट पेनिट्रेशन है वो यहाँ पे बढ़ चुका है। इसके साथ ही जो आपका पोस्ट हार्वेस्ट और सप्लाई चेन लॉसेज हुआ करते थे वो यहाँ पे घट चुके हैं। इसके साथ ही जो इन्वेस्टर्स का इंटरेस्ट है वो इस सेक्टर में दिन ब दिन बढ़ता जा रहा है। एक लेटेस्ट रिपोर्ट की यहाँ पे माने तो दुनिया भर के एग्रीकल्चरल सेक्टर में 3.23 बिलियन डॉलर जो है वो अब तक इन्वेस्ट किए जा चुके हैं। वहीं पे अगर इंडिया की बात करें तो इंडिया में 53 ऐसे एग्रीटेक स्टार्टअप्स हैं जिन्होंने 313 बिलियन डॉलर रेज की। मैं आपको बता दूं कि ये इतने बड़े जो फिगर्स हैं वो इंडियन स्टार्टअप्स के लिए एक ह्यूज ब्रेक थ्रू है।
Does this give you sufficient motivation to say that you are in the right room and you are listening to the right set of people who are providing you the right kind of guidance?